Most people think that when an avoidant man cheats or keeps a quiet rotation of women in the background of his life, it's about sex or about appetite or about him being some irredeemable villain who never felt anything at all. It isn't. It's about distance. And here's the part that's hard to hear. For him, the cheating isn't a search for something more. It's a way of keeping you at arm's length while keeping you close enough. That's the first thing you need to understand. Because right now, wherever you're sitting, you're replaying that exact phrase he used. Maybe it was, I just need space. Maybe it was, I'm not sure I'm built for this. Maybe it was nothing at all. Just a slow fade. And you're trying to decide whether you misunderstood something, whether you missed the moment it went wrong, whether the woman he kept texting was somehow a version of you that you failed to be. You didn't miss anything. Here's the truth. What you discovered, the message, the name saved under a fake name, she's just an old friend. The timeline that doesn't add up isn't an accident that happened to your relationship. It's a mechanism. Avoidant men don't drift into these patterns by mistake. They build them quietly, methodically, the way someone builds a second exit into a building they never intend to live in. And I want to walk through this with you one piece at a time, because the way this works is not the way it looks from where you're standing. Let me be clear about something before we go further. This is not a script about how terrible he is. You're past that. You already know he hurt you. What you don't know, what keeps you up at night, what makes you scroll his profile at 1 a.m. looking for evidence of remorse, is why. Why keep you close and keep her close and keep someone else in the wings? Why not just leave if that's who he is? Why the tenderness on Sunday and the secret phone on Monday? The why is what this is about. Because once you understand the why, the story you're telling yourself about your own worth changes shape completely. And that shape is what we're going to build tonight, slowly, one calm sentence at a time. Picture this. It's 11 at night. Your phone is face down on the nightstand. You've told yourself you won't check it, and you've mostly kept that promise, except for the 3 times you didn't. And in the quiet of your room, you're doing that thing where you replay the last normal day. The morning coffee he made you, the joke he told, the hand on your back as you left, and you hold it up next to what you found, and the 2 images refuse to sit in the same frame. Your mind keeps trying to merge them, and it can't, because they were never the same man. One of them was the man he showed you. The other was the man he kept. Here's what most people miss. Those 2 men aren't in conflict inside him. They're in choreography. Each one exists so the other one can survive. And here's something most people don't see coming. The avoidant man doesn't keep multiple women in his orbit because he wants them all. He keeps them because he can't be fully known by any one of them. Intimacy for him is not warmth, it's exposure. The closer you get, the more of him is visible. And being visible feels to him like standing in a spotlight he never agreed to stand under. So he does something quiet and calculated. He divides himself. A little of him goes to you, the real girlfriend, the one who gets the Sundays and the birthdays. A little goes to the woman in the wings, the one he messages when things between you two get too warm, too close, too merged. A little goes to the ex he never quite deleted, kept on ice like an insurance policy he never intends to cash in, but can't bring himself to cancel. Nobody gets all of him. That's the whole design. Nobody getting all of him is the point. Because if nobody has all of him, nobody can hurt all of him. I want to pause on that for a second, because it's the hinge this entire thing swings on. Somewhere in his history, and you probably know the outline, the cold parent, the unpredictable home, the love that was conditional or inconsistent. He learned that closeness is a risk you manage, not a gift you receive. So he built a system, and the system works like this. He keeps you close enough to feel loved and far enough to feel safe. He keeps her in the wings close enough to feel wanted, and far enough that she can never ask him for anything real. The whole structure is load-bearing. Every woman in it is holding up a different wall of the same house, and he lives in the middle, alone, in the only room with a lock on the inside. Now, here's the thing, and this is where your pain actually lives. You weren't rejected because you weren't enough. You were kept at a distance because you were getting close. Let me say that again, slowly. The distance was not evidence of your insufficiency. It was evidence of your proximity. You got near something in him that he has spent his whole life walling off. And the moment you got near it, the system activated. The text to her started. The vagueness about Saturday. The sudden need for space that arrived suspiciously right after the most intimate conversation the two of you ever had. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And once you see it as a pattern, you stop asking what was wrong with you, and you start asking the only question that matters. What was he so afraid I'd see? He didn't expect you to find out. He expected you to keep living inside his narrative instead. The one where he's just busy, just stressed, just not great at texting back, just a guy who needs a little more space than most. His whole architecture depended on you accepting the explanation that cost him the least. And here's what your discovery did to him. It didn't just expose a betrayal, it collapsed the distances. The woman in the wings found out there was a stage. The stage found out there were wings. And suddenly the man who lived safely in the spaces between people had no spaces left to live in. That's why his response, when you confronted him, was so strange. Not the rage of a guilty man, not the grief of a sorry one, but that flat, blank, almost administrative calm. He wasn't processing losing you. He was processing losing the system. Does he feel it? Of course he feels it. But here's the thing. He feels it the way you feel a draft from a window you refuse to close. He knows something's leaking. He just won't turn around and look at it directly, because looking at it directly would mean admitting the whole structure was a lie he told himself first. He told himself he wasn't cheating. Not really. She was just a friend. They never actually did anything. He was just keeping his options open. He was just being careful. He was just not sure yet. The avoidant man's inner life is a long, unbroken argument with his own conscience, and he wins every round by changing the subject. And this is where the image I want you to hold on to begins. When you pulled away, when you stopped texting, stopped explaining, stopped auditioning for a role in a play whose script you never got to read, you didn't just leave a man. You left a gap. And the gap is not passive. The gap does work. At first, the gap feels to him like relief, a quiet room after noise, the space he kept saying he wanted. That's the first stage, and it can last days, sometimes weeks, and during it you will be convinced he doesn't care at all. He does, but relief is only the first thing a vacuum does. The second thing a vacuum does is pull. The silence he thought he wanted becomes the silence that starts asking him questions. Where is she? Why isn't she fighting for this? And the questions become an echo. Every room he's in, every conversation with the woman he kept in the wings, every Sunday that used to belong to you, comes back to him slightly hollow, slightly wrong, like a recording of a song instead of the song. The echo becomes a weight, not dramatic, not cinematic, just a low, constant heaviness he can't locate. He wakes with it, he scrolls through it, he watches a show and realizes he's absorbed nothing. And the weight becomes an inquiry. He starts checking your profile, then deleting the app so he won't, then reinstalling it. The inquiry becomes a reckoning. The first honest flicker of a thought he's been outrunning for years. Maybe the problem was never them. Maybe the problem is the way I love. And that reckoning, if it ever fully arrives, and I'll be honest, for some of these men it never does, becomes something like a terrarium on a shelf. A small sealed world he can finally look at from the outside and see clearly, all at once. The whole system, the whole choreography, the whole pattern, and the one person who ever got close enough to matter, gone quiet on the other side of the glass. That's what your silence builds in him. Not overnight, not on your schedule, but it builds. He didn't expect you to go quiet. He expected you to negotiate instead. To send the long message, to ask for the conversation, to offer the compromise, to do what every woman in his system has always done. which is absorb the discomfort so he doesn't have to. Here's the thing about the women who came before you. They all stayed in the orbit. That's why the orbit existed. It only takes one woman refusing to orbit for the whole architecture to look suddenly like what it actually is. Not a rich, full, complicated life, but a man standing in the middle of a room full of people he is completely alone with. Now, let me explain something slowly, because this is the part nobody's going to like hearing. There's a decent chance he comes back. Avoidant men usually do. The pattern is almost boringly predictable. The relief, the pull, the echo, the late night message that says nothing. Hope you're doing well. A song link. A reaction to a story you posted months after you stopped expecting him to watch. And in that moment, your chest will do something you don't want it to do. It will leap. Because some part of you, the part that loved the Sundays, is still standing in that old narrative, waiting for the scene where he finally sees you. I need you to hear me on this. The return is not the reunion. The return is the system rebooting. He isn't coming back because he's changed. He's coming back because the vacuum got loud, and you were always the warmest room in his house, and he wants to check whether the door still opens. That's all the check is, a temperature reading. And if you open the door warmly, if you answer fast, forgive fast, soften fast, you teach him that the price of his pattern is a few weeks of discomfort and one lukewarm text. He learns the system still works. The wings get refilled, and you get the next season of the same show, with a slightly better performance from him in the first few episodes. So what do? Do you stay silent forever? Not exactly. Silence isn't the goal, it's the evidence. The goal is what the silence is made of. Here's what most people miss about the no contact, the pulling back, the dignified exit. It was never a move you play on him. The moment you treat your silence as a strategy to get him back, you hand the upper hand right back to him. Because now your peace depends on his response, and he controls his response, which means he controls your peace. No, the silence has to be real. It has to be the sound of a woman who has left the auditorium, not a woman standing in the lobby listening for applause. And that distinction, lobby or gone, is the entire difference between a tactic and a transformation. He can feel which one it is. They always can. The energy is different. A woman performing absence has a grasping energy he can smell through the screen. A woman in genuine reclamation has something else, something settled, something that doesn't need him to notice it. And here's the strange, quiet irony. The second one is the only one that's ever magnetic. Because magnetism, real magnetism, isn't mystery you manufacture. It's a life you're actually living. The avoidant man is drawn, reliably, predictably, almost helplessly, to the woman who is oriented around her own life, because she is the one thing his system can't manage. His whole pattern works on women who reorganize themselves around his availability. The woman who doesn't, who answers warmly but slowly, who likes him but doesn't need the answer from him, who has a standard and holds it without anger. She breaks the choreography. He doesn't know the steps to this dance, and for a while that disorientation feels to him like fascination. But here's the part you have to be honest about. Fascination is not transformation. He can be fascinated and still be him. The only thing that changes an avoidant man is his own reckoning, done on his own time, usually with professional help, usually after the pattern has cost him something he genuinely can't replace. You cannot love him into that reckoning. You cannot hurt enough, explain well enough, stay quiet long enough, be enough to do his growing for him. That's his work. It was always his work. Your work is different. Your work is the rebuild. And I want to talk about what the rebuild actually is, because it's not what the internet told you. It's not the glow. It's not the revenge body, or the upgraded wardrobe, or the strategic photo that says, look what you lost. Those are still performances for his audience. You're just performing your recovery instead of your devotion. The rebuild is quieter and stranger than that. The rebuild is the morning you realize you thought about your own day before you thought about him. The rebuild is discovering that the hypervigilance you called love, the checking, the decoding, the constant low-grade monitoring of his temperature was never love at all. It was anxiety wearing love's clothes. And when the anxiety finally quiets, what's left underneath it is something you may not have felt in years. Your own energy returned to you in full. The energy you were spending on him, and it was so much, wasn't it? The analysis, the second guessing, the drafting of texts, the emotional management of a grown man's inner weather, that energy comes back. And here's the thing, it comes back with interest. Because now you know things, you know what the early signs look like. You know that I need space after intimacy is not a confession, it's a symptom. You know that a man who keeps his options warm is telling you your position in his life, plainly, in advance, and that believing him the first time is not cynicism, it's self-respect. Think about it like this. Your dignity is a thing you carry. It's not abstract. It has weight, and the weight changes depending on what you tolerate. Every time you accepted the vague answer, every time you swallowed the question about who she was, every time you shrank your needs to fit inside his limitations, the thing got lighter, not in a good way. Lighter like a currency being debased. And every day since you walked away, every day you didn't text, didn't check, didn't audition, the weight has been coming back. That's the power shift nobody talks about. It doesn't happen between you and him. It happens between you and the version of you who was willing to be a second choice in a first choice costume. And the day you feel the full weight of your own dignity again, the day you can say, calmly, without bitterness, he showed me his ceiling and I have a higher standard. That's the day the breakup finishes. Not the day he left. Not the day you found out. The day you stopped wanting him to understand what he did. Because wanting him to understand is the last hook. Let me be clear about one thing. You may never get the moment where he sits across from you, Sue, and says, with full comprehension, I see exactly what I built, exactly what it cost, and exactly who paid for it. Avoidant men rarely give that scene. It requires precisely the capacity for sustained self-examination that the whole system was designed to avoid. If you wait for that scene to begin your healing, you are still living in his house. Closure isn't something he hands you. It's something you declare. And the declaration is quiet. It's not a speech. It's just a morning where the story you tell about what happened finally changes tense from what is happening to me to what happened once to a woman I used to be. The you he rejected no longer exists. That's not a slogan. It's a fact of time. She was built inside a system designed to keep her uncertain, and uncertainty was the fuel. Take away the system, take away the fuel, and she can't survive. In her place stands someone who has read the entire playbook from the inside, who will never again mistake distance for depth, or potential for character, or being needed for being loved. He kept 3 women in orbit and called it freedom. You walked out of the orbit and found out what freedom actually is. His was the absence of commitment. Yours is the absence of pretending. So here's what you do now. And these are small things, deliberately small, because your life is rebuilt out of small things. You pick up the phone and call the friend you went quiet on while you were managing him, and you let the conversation be ordinary. You put your body back in motion. Not to sculpt a message to him, but because a body in motion processes what a mind in circles can't. You answer messages from the people who orbited you, the ones who were always there in your wings, steady and undramatic, the ones you half ignored because he was louder. You let warmth back in from safe directions first. You retie the loose ends, the show you abandoned, the plan you shelved, the version of Friday night that belonged to you before it belonged to us. And when the loneliness spikes at 11 at night, because it will, you let it be what it is, a wave, not a verdict. It passes through you and it leaves. It doesn't mean go back. It just means you're healing. And healing is not a straight line, and you don't owe the timeline to anyone. And when he reaches out, when the vacuum does its work and the message arrives, you will notice something extraordinary. You'll read it and the room will stay quiet. No leap, no spiral, just information. And in that moment, you'll understand that the power shift was never about him chasing or not chasing. It was about you no longer needing the answer. He expected the door to still be open. He didn't expect you to have built a whole house somewhere else. So let me leave you with the thing this has all been circling, the one line worth keeping. Your silence after his betrayal isn't coldness, it's the loudest boundary you will ever set. And its fuller version, the one that took you these months to earn, is this. Your silence isn't you waiting for him to see you. It's you finally seeing yourself. He kept you close and kept her close and called the distance love. You learned the difference between being kept and being chosen. That difference is your dignity. That difference is your standard. He built his house out of exits. You walked out of one door and never looked for another way back in. And that quiet, unglamorous, unwitnessed, is the whole story. He'll tell his narrative, the one where it was complicated, where he just wasn't ready, where nobody really got hurt. You don't have to correct it. Your life is the correction now. The room is quiet. You're still in it, and you're no longer waiting for anyone to arrive.